To Mr. D'Souza, you brought up the logical fallacy of the slippery slope argument when talking about imagery of religious figures. Considering that you brought up that fallacy so clearly, I wonder what your response is to the religious right in general when it comes to the slippery slope argument within social and liberal justices.
I'm sorry, I don't understand the question. Can you clarify what you mean?
The slippery slope argument is frequently used to argue against civil liberties and equality in general. I was wondering, since you brought it up as a logical fallacy when it comes to imagery of religious figures, what your response was when it comes to it being used to counteract arguments for civil liberties.
Oh, I see. Well, slippery slope arguments are not inherently valid or invalid. What they describe is a tendency. What they basically say is once you go here, there's going to be an automatic weight to go there. And the question becomes, when is that in fact the case? So somebody could say, for example, that if you raise the taxes of the rich from 35%, the current level, to 40, let's say, that it will automatically go to 45 and 50 and 60 and 70. And I would say, no. To me, that's not a slippery slope. At every case, we can calibrate where we want the taxes of the affluent to be. So it's not that the slippery slope isn't valid, it just doesn't really apply in this particular case. So all I was saying is that if we were to say in a society that we're going to, just as in a society we say when it comes to race, and so in a typical textbook you'll see all those guys. Now, you won't see a whole bunch of other guys. Why? Because there just aren't so many of them in America. They're not represented because they don't have a big constituency over here. So we're basically drawing a line. We're saying let's take the major ethnic groups that are right over here and give them some acknowledgement. We're not going to focus so much on these guys because we just don't have a lot of them over here. We're making a prudential judgment call about which groups are going to be represented. Now, can you do that with sort of perfect justice? You can't. So, but my point is, again, we do it with race, but we somehow think we can't do it with religion. Why not? Just as we have Hispanics, Asians, whites, and blacks, we have Protestants, we have Catholics, we have Jews, we have Hindus. Why can't we make a similar accommodation and say, when it comes to the public square, when it comes to being featured in textbooks, when it comes to distributing literature, that look, just as Susan Jacoby is free to stand in a public school as, let's say, and hand out copies of Tom Paine, some other guy is perfectly free to stand right across from her and hand out copies of the Old Testament if he wants. There's no slippery slope here that is going to automatically say, hey, you're doing that, how come we aren't handing out the Book of Mormon? How come we aren't handing out the Bhagavad Gita? If guys want to do that, we'll consider that too. But there's no automatic slope that prohibits you from getting down that road in the first place. That's what I'm saying.